Some things in life are inevitable, like corporations successfully getting their taxes lowered year after year, or the planet crossing the 1.5 degree threshold, or me being disappointed in the next Battlefield game. But I think Battlefield 2042 might just break that streak. Hey everyone, the Black Hokage here with my review of Battlefield 2042, the latest in EA's long-running series of chaotic online shooters. I've played a bunch of these games, and I've really enjoyed most of them, but the most recent installments, the confusingly titled Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5, were not that great. And based on what I've seen, I was hoping 2042 could be the return to form. And that's exciting because when these games are good, Battlefield is one of the most enjoyable experiences in gaming. So is 2042 a triumphant return or a dystopian nightmare? Let's find out. The Battlefield series began with Battlefield 1942, which took place during World War II and began with the franchise's obsession with the number 42. The franchise then ran through basically every war of the past 100 years, including a couple that haven't happened yet, from Vietnam to the year 2142 to World War I, and then back to World War II again. Many of them included some kind of campaign, but the main draw has always been the massive online battles with as many players as possible sharing a map and trying to murder each other or murder themselves whenever they try to fly a helicopter. And it's pretty much always delivered on that. But when a series runs this long, you have to find ways to offer something new. That's exactly why Battlefield 1 and 5 made the series feel stagnant to me. They literally went backwards not just in the time period, but in the development of the franchise. But Battlefield 2042 moves into the near future, and while it looks as bleak as the United Nations climate report, it also is exciting to get into the action. Set in the war between the US and Russia, the conflict kicks off after the cascading effects of climate change lead to a global blackout, and the emergence of a wave of climate refugees known as nopads. It's a vision of the future that is definitely on Greta Thunberg's bingo card.
This is precisely what I warned you would happen. A cascading series of climate disasters, the displacement of untold millions, the failure of power grids worldwide, and massive battles between 128 players across several game modes. How dare you! Wait.
But these details are all backstory and Easter egg lore. There's no campaign of any kind in Battlefield 2042, which is fine. But I'm not sure there's anyone alive who buys and plays these games for the story. As far as excuses to throw a bunch of players into a mostly modern military setting though, it works. There are 10 specialists available at launch, including Kimball Irish Grays, a returning character from Battlefield 4 who is played by the late great Michael K. Williams. Omar's coming. Ew. This is awesome for two reasons. One, I'm never mad about seeing that guy in something, and two, his presence reminds me of Battlefield 4, which is the last time I really enjoyed the franchise. Each of the specialists roughly fits into one of the classic Battlefield classes, but with gear and abilities that are more, specialized because they're specialists. All this is table setting because the main course is the gameplay. 2042 includes the classic conquest mode, in which a huge number of players battle for control points in massive, destructible environments. It's the bread and butter of the series, and so obviously it's here with a handful of new maps.
The new maps paint a chilling picture of what our future will look like if you do not take this crisis seriously. A rocket launch ravaged by storms in French Guiana, a verdant agricultural region selfishly walled off from deserts of Egypt, hulking shipwrecks off the coast of India. This is what is waiting for us if we do not act. Gorgeously rendered environments that are fully destructible. The only hope of averting this crisis is reducing emissions and recovering data drives. I know what I said.
Conquest is comfort food, but 2042 also comes with the new Hazard Zone mode, which is honestly more exciting to me. It's a change of pace from the usual Battlefield dynamic where the goal is to find data drives and get extracted without getting killed, and it's dope. Hazard Zone rewards working closely with a squad, instead of relying on the chaos of a massive conquest map, but it also highlights exactly how much fun a game like this is with friends, something that Battlefield has made its core platform since the beginning of the franchise. And sure, I guess technically most things are better with friends, but having a squad back you up in Battlefield is particularly satisfying, just trust me. But it can only be fun when the game actually, works, and there's a ton of noise online about how horrible day one play is. I was nervous too on launch day, but I'm feeling better about it now. I know the game is brand new, but overall, the first weekend I'd say the performance has been hit or miss. I experienced crashes, slow load times in the games, and occasional frame rate issues.
EA servers are stealing our future. Our children deserve to play games without poor frame rates. fast matchmaking is an intrinsic human right. These corporations... What's that? The game's performance has already begun to improve? Oh, this is such a relief. That this existential threat is being taken seriously. Imagine if a crisis like this were ignored and allowed to get worse in spite of obvious steps that could be taken to fix it. What an unimaginable situation that would be.
One thing I will say is that when it was running smoothly, the game looked amazing with stunning visuals that made consistently impressive large-scale moments. Again, when it was running smoothly. All of these issues improved on the second day though, and they were almost exclusive to the Conquest mode. Honestly though, the issues with Conquest led me to play more Hazard Zone, and I'm gonna be honest, I'm not mad at that. Hazard Zone actually ran incredibly smooth, which is probably a big part of why I enjoyed it so much compared to Conquest matches. But it really would have benefited from having voice chat at launch. I know they probably thought everyone would just use Discord, but when I had to play with randos, it felt hopeless, because we couldn't coordinate. It's another one of the many reasons this game is 10 times better when played with friends, and it feels kind of shocking that it was an oversight. But in general, a lot of these issues feel like things that will be patched out, and I feel good about the fact that the performance will improve, because this franchise is a cash cow for EA. It doesn't mean I won't dunk on them when their servers don't work, because I definitely will, but it's promising that things are already starting to improve. And with some good post-launch content, they could really have something here, because even in the early days, it does feel like they're already laying the foundation for what could be the best Battlefield title in years. The overall feel of combat in Battlefield 2042 is tight and concise, with guns that feel responsive and varied on top of being hugely customizable. Honestly, it's overwhelming. The customization is some of the deepest I've ever seen in a game like this, and it's worthwhile spending some zen time in the menus building your loadout. Present you will want to jump into the game and start blowing stuff up, but future you will be glad that you put in time to get prepared. It also helps that specialists all feel different from each other, with each of them actually serving a purpose. So if you're playing with friends and construct a genuinely functional unit, you can really sway the tide of battle and feel like an unstoppable squad of Battlefield gods, even in a massive game of Conquest. In general though, Conquest has been the same as pretty much every other Battlefield game. It's tried and true, and the only thing that's really new outside of the expanded scale is some of the maps, which are honestly, they're hit or miss. And the new weather evolutions, like the tornado, it's really dope the first few times, because who doesn't want to ride a tornado? But they also affect the frame rate, and I would gladly give up the occasional tornado to be able to actually hit my shots. It's awesome to be able to summon vehicles on the fly though, and it actually felt balanced because there were timers. Although the Ranger dog definitely needs to be nerfed because it would just snipe me from across the map, and it didn't feel fair, which means everyone's using it, and why wouldn't they? It's cheap. Which is why I've had more fun with Hazard Zone. Even if the greater dependency on making sure you've had an actual squad of friends to play with makes it harder to pick up and play whenever you want. Go make friends. It's not that hard. Okay, fine, it's kinda hard, but do it anyway. For a lot of different reasons, but mostly so you have someone to play with in Battlefield 2042. Your first few matches in Hazard Zone will be rough because everyone will have better loadouts than you. But once you get a scope, it's a whole different monster. You only get one life, which means playing with a level of care and precision that really tested my discipline to not get greedy for kills. Only having one life makes the stakes feel higher, and if you play it properly, the mode really scratches that itch for both thoughtful strategy and constant action. Without friends, it's a lonely, frustrating exercise in futility, kinda like doing an xplay review. But with friends, it's everything I want Battlefield to be. In general, Battlefield 2042 feels like a love letter to longtime Battlefield fans, which is great, cause that's me. And after 2 installments that I did not enjoy, it's nice to feel catered to, especially with the new Battlefield Portal mode, which could result in some really cool stuff if people pick up the ball and run with it. Portal allows players to make custom multiplayer modes with maps and equipment drawn from throughout the history of the franchise, and just know that people are eventually going to make some wild stuff. But that feels like something that's gonna grow in time. The options weren't overwhelmingly robust on the first couple of days. There were some featured modes, but not a ton of people were playing it yet. That's fine though, because Portal feels like an investment in the game's future, and a big part of what's going to keep it exciting moving forward. It adds another social element to the game too, even for people who don't have a squad to play with, and when given tools like this, it's only a matter of time before any community uses it to create something gloriously dumb.
The Battlefield Portal offers a potential future full of options that have been denied to me and my generation. It's an intrinsic human right to be as stupid as we want, as long as it doesn't destroy the planet, which you'd think would be a pretty low bar to clear, and yet...
In general, it's worth remembering that we are at the very beginning of this game's lifespan, but I already feel comfortable saying that I'm enjoying it far more than Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5. And while I'm definitely not upset if anyone wants to wait for a few patches to deploy before diving in, I also feel good about the fact that I've already seen improvements after the first couple of days. Because if DICE and EA can ensure that it keeps functioning properly, then it certainly seems like Battlefield 2042 has fulfilled my hope of getting the series back on track. Assuming you have friends to play with, that is, because it's essential as ever to enjoy a game like this. Even more so if you want to get the most out of Hazard Zone, which I promise you do. So I promise it's worth going out there and making some friends, or at least badgering anyone you know who hasn't played Battlefield for a while to get into this game. Because in the moments when it lives up to its fullest potential, this is the best the franchise has been in ages, which is why we give Battlefield 2042 a 4 out of 5. If you haven't played any Battlefield games before this, you definitely should. To help catch you up, here are 5 things you deserve to know about Battlefield, presented by Dr. Pepper. Here are the top 5 things you deserve to know about Battlefield. Thirst Quench by Dr. Pepper. Number 1, it's a numbers game, literally. Years that end in 42 are prevalent throughout the series. Battlefield 2042 follows the Battlefield naming trend that started with Battlefield 1942, the first of the franchise, and Battlefield 2142, the 4th installment, which makes 2042 the PB&J center of the 42 sandwich timeline. I guess that Coldplay and the folks at DICE agree that the answer of the universe is 42. It's been in front of us the whole time. Number 2, the destruction is a feature, not a bug. First-person shooters are a staple of video games, and making your game war-themed is almost as redundant as the 7th member of BTS. You know the one. A huge way Battlefield stands out from every other war game is by implementing maps that are fully destructible. Starting with Battlefield Bad Company, the development team at DICE utilized the brand new Frostbite engine to make interactive environments that are completely breakable. Since then, almost every game seems to one-up the pure chaos you can create. Whether buildings are falling, ships are crashing, or a freaking tornado is coming from the gods above, when you play Battlefield, be sure to wear a hard hat because debris is everywhere. Number 3, you can fight wars as a pigeon? You heard that right. Thanks to Battlefield 1's harrowing Through Mud and Blood mission, you have the chance to play as a carrier pigeon that must take an urgent message to HQ. As you soar through the air to a forlorn melody, the havoc of war sullenly wages around you. Wow, I didn't know a pigeon could make me cry this easily. Number 4, Battlefield is obsessed with dinosaurs. As mentioned before, Battlefield is a game about war, and when you think about war, you think of things like mustard gas, trench warfare, tanks, and flying pterodactyl attacks. Wait, did I read that right? Ever since Battlefield 3, the devs became enamored with adding dinosaur Easter eggs in almost every game thereafter. Why, you ask? Well, back in 2009, Activision was wondering why their Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 PC sales were lukewarm, asked the kind of folks over at 4chan what they could do to fix this, and the unanimous answer was, add dinosaurs, of course. And while COD was too preoccupied with whether they should, the Battlefield team pulled out their Dr. Hammond to prove they could. Number 5, don't worry about the timeline making any sense. There are literally 17 Battlefield games and almost none of them are in order. Take a look at this. We start with Battlefield 1942, then we go Battlefield 2 to 4. Okay, this is making some sense. And then we have Battlefield 1, and then Battlefield 5? What is going on here? Battlefield 2042 came out 15 years after Battlefield 2142. There's also a Battlefield 1943 somewhere in the mix. Half of the wars are real, the other half are completely fabricated. Like the war of 2014. What were we fighting about? Whether the series of How I Met Your Mother was a complete and total botch, hashtag justice for the mother. There could be a whole college course about deciphering Battlefield's timeline, and I'm already sweating about the final. And don't forget to take a break from the grisly horrors of playing in simulated trenches and treat yourself to an ice cold Dr. Pepper. And that's our review of Battlefield 2042. Let us know what you think about Battlefield in the comments below. We love hearing from you. And for more xplay content, check out our Call of Duty Vanguard review from Sessler and I, and Adam's take on Far Cry 6. Bye!